Hello, and welcome back to mine and Joe's final part of our walkthrough of the South West Coast Path. We rejoin our walk from our wild camp spot, looking down over Sidmouth. This was one of my favourite places we camped on the whole trip. Unbelievable sunsets and sunrises when we woke. Another early start saw us push through the first part of Dorset, a real sense of achievement as we felt on the home stretch. And once again, I just didn't know places like this existed so close to where I lived. I always knew I was very lucky to live near the Jurassic Coast. These huge foliage-covered cliffs were amazing to see. Our incredible diet continued, and hobnobs for breakfast had become a staple at this point. From the crashing of waves on pebbles this morning to the quiet tranquility amongst the woods, it felt like a real journey for the mind, body and soul. And there was something I couldn't quite explain, the way the hills rolled and how the smell in the air had changed. I could feel we'd crossed back into Dorset. I felt a deep sense of belonging and appreciation for my home county. The next section brought its own set of challenges. An isolated, overgrown foresty walk that took us from Seaton to Lyme Regis. The guidebook did mention it was quite isolated, but after about an hour and a half it became quite overwhelming with just how claustrophobic it had become. The video doesn't really do it justice, but we were quite pleased to finally get out of the tunnels of green. What was that?
A load of
Alright, my battered, horrible tongue.
I was going to touch it, but then I thought it might collapse. I was going to give it a shake.
Food is God, mate. Oh, that's beautiful, that is.
Give us a little stringy... Oh.
Look how moist that is. Come on, look at that. What a beauty. We've come up with a new recipe.
The new recipe is bathroom pasta and
Trail pasta. Look at the state of it. I can feel a heart attack coming on just by looking at it. That is perfection, mate.
I'll give it. So our super nutritious and calorie dense meal set us up well for the next day, which was good, as our next challenge was the Golden Cap. And signs like this were never welcome. If you do enough walking in the countryside, you realise that cows are not your friends in situations like this. And after having a few close encounters with them already, we were keen to get through. Right, so we've just moved on from Lyme Regis and Charmouth. We're about 4 miles out of there now, probably. We're about to go up this beast, Golden Cap, which is apparently the highest point in the south coast, maybe? the last few days or week or so of pretty tough walking, high hills constantly. We now get to a point where it's like this. You can see it's flat, pretty much all the way down to Portland, which is pretty. It's amazing to look at. I mean, the sun's gone away for a bit. It's cool. It's flat walking, and it does feel like really being on this flat bit. That was some easy walking. It feels absolutely amazing. It's unbelievable to think I'll be home within a few days. I can't quite remember, but I know as soon as I get home it felt like this was all a big flash. That didn't actually happen. Wow, what an experience, man. I had the pleasure of knowing that my family and my girlfriend were coming to see us this evening. They planned to bring some food and watch the sunset on the beach, enough to keep me going that day. We awoke on the beach in West Bexington. Our plan for the day was to walk up past Abbotsbury and to the Isle of Portland. And it was around this point I started realising I might actually finish the walk, something I couldn't even comprehend just a year before we planned the trip.
That is good enough to eat raw.
Sure you like them? We approached Weymouth, somewhere me and Joe had been so many times throughout our lives. It was strange seeing the coastline go from unfamiliar scenes and transition into places we both knew so well.
There it is, our first look at Dorset. Well, not Dorset, but home. Literally the home stretch. Just got to get round that beast first.
So it might seem ridiculous that we could have not just crossed the road at this point, continued to Weymouth and skipped out a whole day's walking, but we didn't. The Isle of Portland is a part of the path, and having come this far, we didn't want to take a shortcut. The Isle of Portland is the home to a large quarry that mines the Portland limestone that's exported across the whole world. Portland is essentially a circular walk, but by staying true to the path, we were gifted to spending the night camping in a really cool place. And I think for the entirety of the walk, this was my favourite morning. The lights seemed special and new. We got lost a few times heading back through the quarry. Actually took us a little bit longer to get back off the Isle of Portland than we had planned.
Well, after yesterday's big day, had another really good day today. Spent the morning trying to get off, most of the morning trying to get off Portland, got a little bit lost in the dunes. Quite glad to see the back of it, even though it was an amazing walk this morning. Came through Weymouth, heard a scream in, it's too much, so we're back out on the road now. And it is beautiful, look at that. So we're going to try and get to Durdle today, and then Swanage tomorrow, and then back to the pool on Saturday, which is pretty amazing. Cannot believe we got this far.
By this point, each mile almost felt like a victory lap. The hard work was done. Now we could just enjoy each second while it lasted. Seeing signs for Durdle was surreal. This is somewhere I used to come for my family weekend walks. Just a 20-minute car journey from my house.
Don't know where it is, but Durdle. Can't believe it. Absolutely packed like foil. Ah, so nice. Really do feel like that. Bit of an uppy downy here. It's alright though, isn't it? Yeah.
Now I was almost certainly filming Joe here because I was sure he was about to slip, but he didn't. Shame. Now even if you don't know England, Dorset or the coastal path at all, there's a good chance you know this place. Durdle is a pretty iconic geological structure and a tourist favourite. The door is about 200 feet tall, comprised of Portland limestone, and its softer elements have been eroded by wave action over thousands of years, leaving this iconic arch as it stands.
So that is the spot down there that me and Joe parked when we not first discussed, when we went on our practice walks. And we discussed walking down this path in the very far future. And that day is now today, and it's a very bizarre concept. Because it seems so recent, we're only just discussing this right down there as a very distant plan.
Arriving exhausted at Lulworth, we set up camp nearby. This was the only night we got caught and shouted at for wild camping. After explaining our situation, they kindly agreed to let us stay, providing we left by the crack of dawn, which we did. We discovered that the Tyneham section of path was closed. It's often used for military firing and training exercises. A little disappointed, we walked slightly inland and made our way through country lanes. But this turned out to be a beautiful morning of walking, regardless.
So we've got that over there, a little bit of blue. I think it's the first sign of Pool Harbour. Just over there. Can't believe it.
We were over being wet, and we weren't in a hurry, so we took shelter while we waited for the rain to pass. Because sections of the path were closed, we had to improvise, finding little back paths that cut through bushes and scrambling up the sides of hills that really shouldn't have been climbed. I've realised I don't have a huge amount of shots of these types of staircases, but we did hundreds if not thousands during the walk, but this one looked particularly ominous.
So, going to push on to Delston, no food, no water, because Joe is a psycho.
We made it to Delston. Just. Severely dehydrated and exhausted from sun exposure, we took shelter on hammocks in the shade of the trees. Knowing we would be finished the day after, it was fitting I managed to squeeze in one more dose of sunstroke. Joe's brother joined us for the last section of the walk, a welcomed addition.
Nice work, gentlemen.
Our first real glimpses of Haven Point appeared, the finish line for the coast path. It wouldn't be right if there was no mention of our rivals, turned friends, the German duo, the ones who appeared at the most unlikely places, from the very start to the very end of our walk. We would often go a day or a week without seeing them, but out of nowhere, they would jump last minute onto a ferry, or set tents up just metres away from ours, despite being in the middle of nowhere. Me and Joe had made it into a joke throughout our walk, and we were quietly competitive to get to the finish line before them. We bumped into them again just a mile before the end, and all the competitiveness that we built up over the last 6 weeks disappeared. We were all about to finish together, and that was what was important.
I haven't yet. No, they went out kayaks from Studland. Yes. And come right through to the. Yeah, see you shortly. Too near for me. Oh, they're paddleboarding out there.
Here's the first sign for Havens Point. 2.5 miles until my greatest achievement and challenge will have come to an end. I wasn't really ready for that.
I'm related to him, so I think how I feel. You get to go home after this, Rob. He's been around my whole life. Yeah.
Having our final bites of cake and drinking bottles of beer, we prepared to turn the very last corner before we reached our goal. And just like the halfway line, through all the excitement, I didn't film anything. But we were greeted by friends and family, and that's what was most important. These 6 weeks have been the best of my life, an adventure in its purest form. No room for excuses, no space for negativity. It's reshaped me, both in spirit and in soul, and I'm immeasurably richer for it. To Joe, thank you for the endless laughter and for your patience, waiting for over 2 years to see these moments come to life. Life will always have its hills, but there's no point standing still. The only way is up, and sometimes the climb itself is where the real beauty lies.